Yeah, you heard me right. You read it right. I said the follow through doesn't matter, so you just need to relax. You're probably thinking like, what is he talking about? The follow through is probably one of the most important things in tennis for any stroke, meaning forehand or backhand, but I'm going to say it in a different way because I think this is killing so many players' ground strokes, which means is they're focusing so much on the finish that they're actually making poor contact. Let me explain. First of all, let's define what I'm talking about as far as the follow through, because this could get confusing. When I think of follow through, I think of players when they're swinging and they're trying to get the racket all the way around, okay? So yeah, this I would consider like you're stopping your follow through if someone said that, and you're not completely letting the racket go around. What I'm saying is, this isn't as important. You need to relax, but hear me out. Because you're probably saying, I don't believe this. Well, let's think about this for 1 second. Break it down. What's the most important part of your stroke? Footwork, ground strokes, your take back, all those things, and maybe your swing, all those things are important, but the one critical moment is the contact, meaning that this is the only time you're actually touching the ball. So that means this is the sole thing that has the influence on where the ball goes, right? Okay, so this is a problem where I see a lot of recreational players making a mistake because they're so focused on getting it here that they actually create a bad or poor contact. So instead of really focusing on having a contact, they're really just thinking, okay, the ball's there, yeah, I'm gonna swing for it, but I gotta get up here. So they start coming off the ball and creating inconsistency with their shot. I mean, let's look at this another way. If the follow through was so important, why don't we see everybody with the exact same follow through? I mean, you see Nadal and he finishes this way. You see sometimes players when they get caught, they don't even finish the whole stroke. I see it on the backhand all the time where they're like getting caught in the shot. Have you ever seen this? And they just go like this. Or you see like a player stretch and they're just doing this. There's no follow through, okay? What they were really focusing on is making sure they had good contact. And this now becomes the big difference between a lot of recreational players and players that are at higher level. They understand how important the contact is. The reason I said just relax is if you focus on having good contact and relax, it kind of takes care of itself. So you don't have to worry about it. And this is the idea. Any ground stroke, any part of your strokes have 3 major phases. You have the preparation phase where you're getting your stroke ready and you're loading. You have the acceleration phase to contact, okay? And then you have the deceleration phase. So basically if you do phase 1 and 2 right, boom, the end phase is just to let everything play itself out. And this is where I see another big thing come up for so many recreational players, is that they'll hit a shot and then they think, because I'm muscling over this way, that it's gonna do something to the ball. But when you slow it down, this is what they're seeing. They see they make contact, the ball has left the strings, and then they're muscling over. And this is overworking certain parts of your body. It could cause tennis elbow injury, where I see players working so hard that they're like, I gotta get the finish, or some like weird contraption like that, when really if they just would work on making sure they're prepared and they're accelerating and having good contact, then what would happen? You'd actually hit a good ball. You wouldn't even have to worry about the follow through. So in this video now, we're gonna do a couple drills to really help you cement this, because when you start having good contact, it changes the game for you, because with good contact you can be consistent. With good contact you can have a repeatable and reliable stroke. And if you're struggling with having a repeatable and reliable stroke, whether it be the forehand or the backhand, generally it comes down to you have poor contact management, okay? Poor contact management. Look that up. So what I want to do is make sure you have great contact management so you can start being more consistent. Now, one more thing that I think is so important, because the way I'm going to swing in a second will remind you of kind of like old school tennis. It's like, oh, he's just telling us to do some old school tennis. Well, or kind of like, yeah, old school tennis. We'll go there. Compared to like modern tennis. Now, here's the thing. If you watch kind of, let's say, older school tennis, what you're going to see is they focus on the contact and push the ball through the contact. Okay, that's old school tennis. Now, if you focus on the modern game, the most important part hasn't changed. The part that's changed is how they've amplified the ability to get the racket through contact faster. That's it. So what I mean by that, where you see like a classical tennis player, you know, hitting balls like this, and you see modern tennis players doing this and kind of this whole windup. The difference is now I'm using my body to make sure that in my preparation phase, phase 1, I have a lot of energy stored. And then phase 2, I really accelerate. But guess what? In phase 2, when we get to contact, if you just looked at the racket between times, modern and old school, you're gonna see the same thing. The only difference is you're gonna see modern has now learned how to use their body to generate faster speeds through the contact versus just using your arm or just kind of pushing the ball, okay? And that's the difference. So I want you to understand that when people are talking about modern tennis and you gotta like windshield wiper the ball and you're windshield wiping this, you're not windshield wiping anything. If you look at modern players, Nadal, he'll go under the ball. His wrist is very passive, meaning that it's not doing some action like this. It goes through the ball like this, and then afterward, because of momentum, he lets it come around. You look at Alcaraz, great example. He's the new kid on the block who's crushing forehands, and you're like, it's so modern, it's so cool, he's doing this. But basically, he's learned how to use his body very well, but through contact, what you're gonna see is this. Boop, 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 boop. Contact, boop, 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 boop. And in his finish, even his wrist kind of comes over a little bit. And we'll see that and go, that's the new modern game, you gotta snap through. No, but if you slow it down, it's all the same. Don't be fooled, okay? Don't be fooled. Yes, every once in a while, because they're trying to hit topspin on like an angle, you might see a little bit more activity on upward swing, but I would say almost 80 to 90% of the time, you're gonna see wrist coming through, passive, 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 boom, they make contact, and right after contact, that's when the wrist picks up and they let the momentum come around and they do some funky things after that. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but the contact stays true through the shot. So let's do some drills. So the first set of drills are really simple, something you can do drop fed to yourself, and then I'm going to use the ball machine, and this is really important. I recently have a client that I'm working with, and one of the things he was talking about is that he was experiencing kind of this lag and snap action, and he was losing a lot of the control he had on the ball. And it was ironic because he picked up tennis, he played tennis for a long time when he was younger and had a very classical stroke and he's getting through the ball, and he felt that and he's like, you know, I want to incorporate more modern type style. I'll switch my grip a little bit more. And what happened was he switched his grip, but I think he started lagging and snapping and kind of brushing over the ball. He's like, it just doesn't feel as good. I know I'm supposed to do this. And so again, I want to encourage that regardless of, you know, if you're a little bit more classical or you're trying to play the modern game, through contact is the same. And so what I want you to do is really simple. We're gonna set my racket up where the butt of the racket is looking forward. And all I'm gonna do is pull my racket through contact. Pull it through contact, and then I'm gonna stop. You're like, what? I'm gonna pull through contact and stop. Now here's what's really gonna happen. It's slightly a trick. If you pull through contact, what's happening is you're building speed in the racket through your arm and the racket, and as you build speed, you're gonna make contact, and you're gonna feel the contact and you're gonna stop, and guess what? The racket's gonna keep going just a little bit, and then you're gonna stop probably about right here. So you went through the ball, but we haven't done the follow through, and that's what I want you to do for a round. And you'll probably even feel like you're a little muscled. That's totally okay too. I want you to feel this, okay? So right here, I'm gonna pull, and the funny part is, after you do this a couple times, boom, you can see also how this shot is very consistent. I just drop fed two, and obviously I'm drop feeding, so it's easier, but it's really solid through contact. Now, here's the other thing. If you do this correctly, what you're gonna feel is, when you get to about here, you're gonna have to like, really kind of almost squeeze the racket so it doesn't go around, okay? You're getting here and you're like, squeeze the racket so it doesn't go around. This is an important sensation that I want you to feel, because what I want you to do is not fight it. Most players, they're so tense, they come through the racket and then they have this tension, and then not only that, because they have so much tension, they force the racket to the finish, okay? And so what that actually does over time, it actually takes away from your forehand, because by having the tension, you're starting to squeeze probably before contact, you're slowing the racket down. I know you're like, but Kevin, you just told me to squeeze. I wanted you to squeeze because I want you to feel, as you went through contact, that kind of weight in your hand. And so what we want to do now is simply relax and let the weight do what it wants to do, which is it wants to go forward. It wants to come around. And it wants to come around in the way it wants to come around, not necessarily the way you want it to come around. And that's what you want to let happen. So now, instead of going here and stopping, I'm going to go here and relax, okay? And relax, okay? That was a little long. And relax. Those feel so much better than what I think a lot of players feel when they're brushing coming off the ball. And so this is important. Now, I'm gonna give you a really quick synopsis on if your ball's going long or if it's not going where you want. It comes down to racket face. So contact most important part. Now where the racket face is facing is the most important part too. Basically, it means that as I'm going through contact, the strings need to look where I want the ball to go. If it's closed or too closed, it's going to go low. If it's too open, it's going to go up. And so what we want to do is make sure as we're swinging, we're not bathing over the ball. I've heard this a couple times from students that they're like, oh, I need to bathe over it. I need to kind of brush the ball. You don't need to brush the ball. If you want spin, just simply start below the ball and pull your racket past the ball. And that's going to create friction, which creates spin on the ball. So again, I'm not bathing over the ball, which takes the ball in the net. I'm simply coming up and coming through. And what you're going to get the sensation of is a solid contact. I am so torn when I see players and they never get to feel how it feels to have a solid contact when they're hitting a tennis ball. And then what you can start doing is start using a ball machine or having a pro feed you. And what this is basically the exact same thing. I'm going to do the drill and actually not follow through. I'm just going to stop right here because I want you to really understand that the focus should be 100% making sure that the contact is the absolute best it can be. Because if not, you're not going to have a good ball. And so what I'm going to do here is as the ball comes out, and you can see that ball's moving. Oh, caught that one a little bit late. Didn't start my swing early enough. Okay? So you can see I'm not really focusing on the follow through. It looks a little tight, I get it, but the key is I'm so focused on making sure that this is through the ball. It makes it so solid and so easy to hit. So now what I'm going to do is just relax. Go through and relax. The key is not, oh, got a little late on that one. The key is making sure that I'm making contact in front here, not behind here, because if I do this, yeah, I'm fighting it. And I can still get away with it. I can still have contact back here, but that's going to put a lot of pressure on your elbow. So we want to make sure contact's in front, and now I'm driving through that contact. There we go. And so now you can see how solid the ball sounds. I'm getting under the ball. Uh-oh, close the racket face. Okay, so you can see these are the core fundamentals of what you see the pros doing. Meaning that you see them coiling up and doing more to get more speed, but through contact, this is what's going on. And then they relax and do whatever they want to do, that's their personal style. Make sure you understand that, because so many players get caught up and they see like someone's finishing here or someone's finishing here and they're like, that's the key. That's the key to tennis. You got to finish up here, you know? But even with Nadal finishing up here, if you really watch slow motion, you see him going through the ball just like this. Now, the very next thing you have to make sure you have that can take this to a whole nother level is learning how to use your body. Because yeah, you can hit balls like this, but you're gonna put pressure on your elbow. It's not gonna be consistent because guess what? By hitting it here, you're gonna create a situation where the contact is very poor. Where here, the contact is very strong. Okay, so meaning that, yeah, I could hit a ball here, and I'm sure we all have hit balls here, and you can still make it because the racket face is looking at where the ball wants to go. But if you want the strongest contact, you need to be able to use your body and making sure that your body's behind the ball to support having a strong contact through it. And that's what's gonna have you having or hitting solid, strong ground strokes, whether it be a forehand or a backhand.